Righto, ladies and gents. So I've been meaning to do this live for a while, actually. And, I've just been putting it off, being busy with this and that. And I said, you know what? Finally, I'm actually going to talk about this. This is something that really needs to be put out there, right? Now, what sparked this conversation is these auroral lights that everyone's seeing around the world. Apparently this is just solar winds or solar friggin' whatever it is, something to do with the sun, right? And something to do with our magnetic force in, or our atmosphere, the sun's, something coming from the sun, and then interacting with our atmosphere, right? And we're getting all of these lights. And there's people out there that have stated, which makes a lot of sense, that this has got to do with HAARP and, what these actual machines can do. And what sparked this conversation is this. Okay, so if you call yourself someone who is awake, someone who is not been brainwashed, someone who is completely and utterly, of the idea that we've been lied to about fucking everything, and I mean fucking everything, and you turn around and within that same conversation, you have the audacity to talk about the fact that they haven't lied to us about space and all the other stuff, then I'm sorry to tell you, then you're still programmed. 100% completely unequivocally. If you still believe in the shit that they've given us about space and the solar system and universes and multiverses and fucking nebulas and all the other shit, if you believe that and you can sit there with a straight face and say to me that you are 100% in terms of not being fooled, then I've got news for you. You are seriously not there yet. Now, what has sparked this conversation? Auroral lights, this and that, something to do with the Earth's atmosphere and the solar winds or whatever else. And we've had this event that's come from the sun, and the sun has created this thing on our atmosphere where there's coloured lights everywhere, when really you should only really see these in the northern and southern parts because of the poles and this and that, right? Okay, so firstly, I'm going to explain to you why you've been lied to, okay? And if you still don't have an open mind after all the lies you've been told, if you still don't have an open mind and said, you know what, maybe they have lied to us about this, they've been lying to us about this as well, I've got news for you. What we live in is the ultimate truth, which destroys everything. I mean, if you finally realize what we live in and who we really are, it will bring you closer to God than ever before. So this is how the story starts. I was at Christmas years ago, and I was sitting with my brother. Shout out to my brother Chris, who actually said this to me for the first time. And we were sitting there having a conversation, and he brought up flat Earth, right? He brought up the fact that the world was flat. I thought he was batshit crazy when he told me. But having an open mind, I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to explore this. Let's have an open mind. Let's have a look. Let's see. Because, I was of the understanding through indoctrination of our education system, through all of the starts of all of the new, your movies, Universal Studios, right? Always putting that Earth in front of you and space and Star Wars and all this shit, right? NASA, you were under the impression that all of that was real, right? So I thought, you know what? He's probably batshit crazy, but I'm gonna entertain this. So I started researching and looking at things. And I looked at a few videos, and then when I started actually listening to what they were saying, I said, and at the time, this is the most important part of this whole video. At the time, when my brother told me, I was reading Genesis in the Bible. And I remember when I read Genesis, it said, and God created the heavens and created the waters and separated the waters from the waters with the firmament, and said that it was actually separated with a solid object called the firmament. I'm like, hang on a second. I remember reading this not too long ago, and now I've seen a video about this multiple. I watched multiple videos. I read heaps of information, right? And this is the whole thing when it comes to talking about this subject. People go, oh, you're uneducated. You're an idiot. You're a flurfer. You're retarded. You're this, you're that. It's like, okay, so you believe what the people who have basically taken hostage of our education system and the people who have taken hostage our entertainment industry and all of the information that we get regurgitated into us from children, you believe that as truth, but there might not be something else that's actually the truth that's been held from us and lied to us about. So this is the first point. So I've watched this, a few videos or whatever else, but the thing was, when you watch this stuff, you don't just go and watch one video like, oh, because you have this, there's a certain level of cognitive dissonance. When you first hear about it, you're like, that can't be true. No way, this has to be a lie. So after my brother told me, I did my research. And I did multiple research. And then I started finding things. I started reading things and listening to things and things that just shit that didn't make sense. So the first thing that got me is like, okay, how come they hadn't gone back to the moon? They went to the moon in 1969. How come they haven't been back since? How come they never, ever went back again? What, because they lost all of their telemetry data? What a load of shit. Bullshit. And then I looked into, you start doing your research. I'm going to start telling you a few things. And why am I telling you these things? Because you cannot sit there and say that you are fully open-minded to what's going on with our world and at the same time think they haven't lied to us about space. Because I'm telling you right now, in Genesis, it says that God created the firmament and separated the water. God created the waters above from the waters below and separated the waters from the waters with a firmament. Now, what they did in the new version of the Bible, they changed the word firmament to expanse. Because why would you change the word firmament to expanse? Why would you go through all of the trouble of changing these words? Because expanse means space. Firmament is a solid object. Now, I'm going to tell you a few things, right? So you guys can understand just how much we've been lied to. Now, this is how it all went. I'm going to bring them up because I've basically taken little screenshots of everything so I can give you all of the timeline. And this is what really started to spark my interest. So firstly, the gentleman who created the V2 rocket, his name was Wernher von Braun. On his tombstone, now, the guy who created the V2 rocket, who obviously worked for, worked under Hitler, right? He created the V2 rocket during the Second World War. When he died, he wrote a message on his gravestone. And the passage he put on his gravestone was Psalms 19:1. And it says, the heavens declare the glory of God and the skies proclaim his hands. That's the new version. But if you go to the original version of it, it is, the heavens declare the glory of God and the firmament showeth his handiwork. The firmament meaning a solid object. So I'd seen that. I said, why would a guy who died go and put this as his final message to the world on his gravestone? So then I looked further. And then when you start doing your research, you find that so NASA was created in 1958, right? NASA was created, if you look at the timeline, I'm going to tell you all of the things that happened. So NASA was created in 1958. In 1959, something called the Antarctic Treaty was signed. Now, Operation High Jump was a highly classified military operation that took place in Antarctica, where they took 4,700 men, 70 ships, and 33 aircraft, and an explorer. Okay. So, where was I? Now, Operation High Jump commenced on the 26th of August, 1946, right? Now, this was at the height of the Second World War, where, all of our countries are basically depleted with resources, but still, you had such a need to go and explore a land which is apparently from the penguins, right? So Operation High Jump was in 1946. Now, you've got 13 years later, they created the Antarctic Treaty, which says that no people, whether you are strictly military or scientific with permission, can ever explore Antarctica. Anywhere, anyone around the world. Doesn't matter how rich you are, whatever else. If you don't have specific permission to go down to Antarctica, you cannot be there. So I did my research even further, and then you find out in 1962, they did something called Operation Fishbowl. And what they did something called high altitude nuclear testing, they called it. High altitude nuclear testing. Well, what it really was, they were shooting nuclear warheads at the firmament to try and get through. Then when they realized they couldn't get through the firmament, in 1963, where are we? Operation Fishbowl was in 1962, right? Before they did Operation Fishbowl, 1961, they said they were going to put a man on the moon. They put the man on the moon on 1969. But the most important thing you need to understand is when you look at the timeline, in 1958 was when they created NASA. In 1959, they signed the Antarctic Treaty, which said that you cannot go to the moon, you cannot go to Antarctica for any reason unless you are strictly given permission from your government. Now, the treaty that was signed had been signed on by countries that had been at war with each other, and not only had been in war with each other, United States and Japan signed onto this treaty, and Russia and China, everyone. Everyone signed on to this treaty, which they say it's imperative that you don't go to Antarctica, right? For any reason. So I went from my brother's crazy to actually starting to put together all these dots. I'm like, mate, they literally not even 1 year apart, they created NASA, and then not even a year later, they created the Antarctic Treaty. And the Antarctic Treaty was signed by countries of people that were at war, that were bombing each other, didn't like each other, but yet they all agreed, hey, let's protect the penguins. So then when you do your research any further, you realize, and I'm telling you, if you have not researched this and looked it up, and I'm telling you, if you say you've got an open mind, but you haven't actually gone and looked into this stuff, then you are being fooled with everything. So people go and ask me, do you believe that Elon Musk is good and trustworthy? No, I don't. Because he's got SpaceX. How can you have fucking SpaceX when there's no space? So how can you say that he's good and he's for the people when he's created a actual part of his company which is about space exploration? When there's a firmament and you can't get out. That's why they haven't been back to the moon, mate. That's why they haven't done any of that stuff. Because they can't get out, mate. There is no out. There is nothing else. There is us, the firmament, all of the stars, everything circles us. There is nothing else. We are the ultimate beings. There is nothing else. There's God's creation, and it's under a firmament. And if you want to understand predictive programming and stuff like that, have you ever seen the movie, The Truman Show? The Truman Show. The Truman Show. And when you watch The Truman Show, you see the guy gets on a boat. He floats out thinking he's going to go to get away, leave into the ocean, and he hits a wall. And then he realizes when he finds the wall, he finds the door, and everything's under a dome. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because auroral lights is all bullshit unless you are in the northern and south poles where our magnetic fields are. Impossible for it to happen unless it is formulated by something that's being done by man. I'm sorry, we're not getting fucking solar radiation coming from the sun because in our real world, the earth and the sun and the moon is under the firmament. The sun and the moon is under the firmament. The sun's not billions of miles away. The sun's not fucking like 600 times bigger than the earth or whatever else. The sun is 35 miles wide. The moon is 35 miles wide. They were localized objects. Now, if you look at some of the information that's told about the flat earth and everything else, then you find out about the moon. Now, I've done this experiment. I have actually done this experiment. I watched a video where it talked about the fact that the moon emits its own light and the sun emits its own light. But the interesting thing about the moon is the moon does not emit warm light. So in this thing that it shows you on the video, it shows you the moonlight and it shows you a shadow. And it's actually cooler in the moonlight than in the shadow. The shadow is warmer than the actual moonlight. I've actually done this experiment myself. I've used the heat gun. I checked the moonlight and I checked the shade. The shade was about 1.5 degrees warmer than the moonlight. The moonlight was 1.5 degrees cooler than the shade. Then I got a heat gun and I tried it on an incandescent bulb in my house of the shadow of inside my house where the light is able to hit and where it's being blocked. And within an area of my home with an incandescent bulb, the shadow was cooler than where the light was. The light was 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees warmer than the shadow. But in the moonlight was cooler and the shade was warmer. So the reason I'm bringing all this up, because global warming is all bullshit. There is no fucking global warming because none of our sun is getting trapped in our atmosphere, and that's why we're all warming up. It's all bullshit. That's why it's the ultimate lie. And until you realize that this is the biggest lie of all of them, and it basically just incinerates all the other bullshit we've been told, global warming, the aliens are coming to get us, there's billions of other things out there apart from us, and we're just a small speck of sand. And what they did was they created the lie. They shielded the fact that no one can go and ever explore Antarctica, because past the walls of Antarctica, because Antarctica are these giant ice walls. They hold the ocean in. These are these giant ice walls. Past the walls of Antarctica, there's actually more land. And there's a video from an admiral from years ago. It's in black and white. This guy is an explorer. His name's Admiral Byrd. And you'll see him say on the video, after going past exploring past the lands of Middle America and further down, he goes, he found a landmass, right, which was the size of the United States past the landmass of Antarctica. So basically, what actually we're told in terms of what this world is and everything else, if you want to understand it, mate, just go and read Genesis. Go and read what it says about the fact that there's a firmament. Then go and have a look at the fact that in the New Bible, they actually took out the word firmament and put in expanse. If it was such an insignificant thing, why would you go to the trouble of changing that word in Holy Scripture? Why would you do that? So basically what it does is it gets rid of everything. Theory of evolution, out the window. Why? Because we are divine beings that are under a firmament. There's nothing else apart from humans. We're it. Right? We're created in the image of God. There is nothing else. If you actually have a look at our stars and everything else, and you have a look at Polaris, Polaris doesn't move, mate. Polaris is a center star which does not move. All of the other stars rotate around Polaris. All the stars rotate around us. There is no, we're hurtling through space at billions of miles an hour and we're spinning and there's the Earth over here and there's gravity and all this shit, right? And basically, even with all of this movement, we can still circumnavigate the globe by the stars. I mean, flawlessly, you can circumnavigate the globe by the stars, right? But yet, apparently, if you understand triangulation, if just one of those stars were to move even half a degree, you wouldn't be able to navigate from that star anymore. Yet they've been navigating with our stars for thousands of years, and none of these stars have moved even an iota, where navigating from the stars doesn't make it feasible to be able to get around in the seas anymore. Why? Because we're not moving, mate. We're a solid object. We're covered. And when people hear this, they think you're fucking batshit crazy. Why? Have you actually gone and had an open mind and looked at it? And the reason I'm doing this video is because of the fact that don't talk to me about Elon Musk and whether he's a good guy. Why? Because he's bullshitting about what he's doing in space. That's it. To me, that's the ultimate thing. Don't talk to me that all these countries are fighting against each other and everything else when they all signed on to the Antarctic Treaty and agree that no one go down there. Nobody go down there unless you are strict military or you are government. You cannot go down there. And people go, oh, you can go and explore Antarctica. No, you can't. You can go on a tour, which is basically controlled, there's a controlled route. You're not allowed to go and explore inland of Antarctica. You're not allowed to. Then, when you look at it further, so the first thing that got me was Operation Fishbowl. Operation High Jump, Operation Fishbowl. I'm like, look at the timeline with all these things. Antarctic Treaty, signed by countries that didn't even like each other. Japan and the USA signed this thing. And Japan was bombed by the United States of America, if I'm not mistaken, with an atomic bomb. But yet they were happy to sign on to a treaty to protect the penguins. And then you go further and you look at all of the things they created. The Antarctic Treaty was created in 1959. NASA was created in 1958. You've got Operation Fishbowl that happened before the moon landing. High altitude nuclear testing. And then when you start really looking at things, the thing that got me, I think the thing that put me over the line was flight paths. When I looked at flight paths with planes, this was what put me over the line. No plane ever flies in the southern hemisphere. No plane flies the southern hemisphere. And then there's certain flights, like I think it was Sao Paulo, Brazil to Cape Town, Africa. And I saw the flight. I'm like, they fly up and they fly down. And the radar, they fly up and they fly down. I'm like, why do they fly up and fly down? Why wouldn't you just fly across? Wouldn't that be a shorter route? But then when you look at that flight plan, that flight path, and you look at it on the flat earth map, it's like, holy shit, they're flying straight. They're flying straight across. That's why you never see any flight paths of planes that are flying directly over Antarctica, because they can't. You'll never see a plane on the flight tracker fly the southern hemisphere. Go and have a look now. Stop this video and go and have a look. Every single plane that's flying in the southern hemisphere flies up and it flies down. Take that same flight route now and put it on a flat earth map. They're flying fucking straight. That was the thing that put me over the line. It's like, you're right. They don't fly over the southern hemisphere. Why do none of these planes fly over the southern hemisphere? That was the thing that basically what solidified everything that I was looking at. That was the one, because there's no explanation for why this happens. Then you go even further and you go, hang on a second. Look at the United Nations. They've got a flat earth map. Why do they have a flat earth map for the United Nations? Then you look at the World Health Organization. They've got a flat earth map. Why does the World Health Organization and the United Nations use a flat earth map? Why don't they use a normal map? And then you realize it's like these people are so convinced with the way they've fooled the world, they can openly show the real world in front of people and people don't see it. People do not see it at all. So, are the auroral lights real? And are they happening naturally? No. I'll tell you why. Because there is no fucking sun outside of the firmament. There is no atmosphere. There is no space. It's all bullshit. So no, you cannot have auroral lights happening unless it's being manipulated by man. Can you trust Elon Musk? No, you can't. Why? Because he's got SpaceX. You're openly exploring space, but at the same time, there's a firmament. So what are you exactly exploring? And apparently you're for the people. No, you're one of them. So unless someone actually openly starts speaking about the fact that that we have a firmament, that we're stationary, that all of our stars rotate around us, and then you go, okay, well, what's a star? Is a star a gas ball? And this was another thing that absolutely blew my mind. So within the firmament, you've got us, and above the firmament is meant to be water. Now, this was the thing that absolutely blew my mind. On this video, okay, so an amazing video to watch is called Planet Flat Earth. It's on Odd TV. Look up ODD TV, Planet Flat Earth. This guy's documentary that he's done is incredible. And it shows something called a star in a jar. A man had actually created a star in a jar. And what he'd done was he had an air bubble underwater, and he put sound through the air bubble. And what happened was, from the sound collapsing through the air bubble, it created so much heat that it created something called a star in a jar. So the stars above us are actually sound waves collapsing underwater, turning into all different colors. So then I said, okay, I'm going to look at the stars for a second. When you actually look at the stars and you look at them properly, you realize, hang on a second, they actually look like a light that's glimmering underwater. So then if you actually look up real pictures of stars, not NASA, not all the bullshit, real pictures from amateur cameras which are able to zoom in, you see they look like frequencies, and the frequencies are exactly like 128 hertz, 950 hertz on a site. I think it's starts with C, but it's basically a plate where they play a sound through it, and they put sand on it, and you see the shapes that are created from sound. If you look up and you look at these things and you look at real pictures of stars, what you find is they are these they are different sounds. Cymatics, thank you. They are different sounds that are being and each star and each planet, whatever else, if you look at them closely, what they are is they're actually showing the sound they're creating. So what the stars are is they're a symphony of sound that's being created. That's basically this underwater bubbles that are collapsing, that are creating all these different colors. Mate, there is nothing else. I'm sorry to tell you, but there is nothing else. There's no space. There's no aliens. We're it. We are the ultimate beings. Why did they lie to us? Why did they create the theory of evolution? To get rid of God. To make us feel like we're insignificant. And, it was all some big accident. And we evolved from apes. It's all bullshit, mate. It's all lies created by 33rd degree Freemasons. Buzz Aldrin was a 33rd degree Freemason. Charles Darwin was a 33rd degree Freemason. Everyone who's created all of these things that we've been lied to about, every single one of them were Freemasons. Every single one of them are involved with Freemasons. You have to have an open mind. And I'm telling you, man, just go and have a look. You cannot say you are open-minded. You cannot say that you actually are switched on to being, with the truth, the real truth. And at the same time, when someone brings up a subject like flat earth, you think that's absolutely ridiculous. Universal Studios, all of the shit, it's all indoctrination, mate. Ask yourself, how come they haven't been back to the moon? Why didn't they go back? All these years, you're telling me they couldn't have gone back. They didn't go back because they never fucking went. And the reason they announced the moon landing was because they did Operation High Jump. They realized that past the walls of Antarctica, there is more land. Past the walls of Antarctica is where you'll find the firmament, which basically, it affirms the existence of God. It affirms the existence of creation. It affirms the existence that we are special. There is nothing else. It affirms the power that we actually have as humans. So of course you're going to take that away. Then what they did was they did your high altitude nuclear testing. They shot high altitude, they were shooting nuclear warheads at the firmament. They found out they couldn't get through. So they put a man on the moon because they really needed to put something which affirms the whole space thing. So as I said, if you want to say that you are open-minded, and if you want to say that you are truly awake and you discount the fact of what we live on, then I'm sorry to say you are still in the matrix, mate. Because until you realize that we are motionless, we are under a firmament, we are the key creation of God, and there is nothing else apart from us, absolutely nothing else apart from what God's created, then I'm sorry, you are still in the matrix, mate. You are still in the matrix. And when people say to me, all of these countries like Russia and everything else, you know, they're all fighting against each other and they're going to save us and Trump's going to... When they're all signed on to the same treaty, to maintain the same lie about where we live, and then people say, why would it be so important to lie about it? Because everything that these people tell us about all of the catastrophes that are coming to our world exists because of the existence of space. If you get rid of the fact that we have an atmosphere, if you get rid of the fact that we're actually trapping CO2 and it's warming up our world, if you get rid of all that, and you get rid of the fact that we don't have an atmosphere, then the sun's not really doing anything. CO2's a load of shit. It's all a lie. Everything these people have told us is one massive lie, mate. And if you want to really grasp it, I'm telling you, just spend 3 hours of your time and go and have a look at some information. Then go and have a look at videos of stuff like Buzz Aldrin telling a girl they never went to the moon. Go and have a look. And this was another one. This was a massive one that really, really got me thinking, right? If you go and look up the guys who landed on the moon, right? Go and have a look at the guys who landed on the moon. This is massive. And they're being interviewed by reporters. You can honestly see the expressions on these people's faces. If you haven't gone and watched the press conference of the three people that landed on the moon and what they had to say about how amazing the moon was, one bloke says that there were stars. One guy says there were no stars. All of their answers were all different. Their faces looked like they were fucking absolutely terrified. I mean, absolutely terrified. You could see the faces of these people. They were lying through their teeth and they were shitting themselves. Now, if you don't believe me, go and watch these people that should have been so excited to have been the first three men in space. When they were explaining it, there was no excitement. There was no emotion on their face. All of their answers were different. It's like, hang on, you've been to space, you've been to the moon, and you don't even look excited. You'd think you'd be over them, you'd think you'd be absolutely just gobsmacked at what you'd just seen. And you'd think the excitement on your face would be just, coming right out of you. You would have seen, you'd have this aura about you that you've experienced that type of thing. Nothing. Their faces are like this. Terrified. I mean, absolutely terrified. If you haven't seen it, going, okay, so these blokes went to the moon, did they? Great. Let me have a look. Let me look at these people's faces. Go and listen to and go and watch Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about space. Have you ever watched someone who's lying through their teeth and you can tell they're lying? The way his eyes move left to right, his facial expression. You can tell the guy's lying. These guys have lied to you about this. This is the ultimate lie. This is the gatekeeper of all lies. If you don't go and research this, if you don't really pay attention to this, and if you don't have an open mind, then I'm sorry, you're still in the matrix, mate. And when you see stuff like auroral lights happening in places they shouldn't be happening, and apparently that could be natural, it's not. It's engineered because there's only two places you should see those things. And that's where our poles are. Anyway, ask yourself a question. Why have a flat earth map as the World Health Organization, and why have a flat earth map of the for the World Health Organization? Why use that map when you're a world organization? Think about it. Think about all of the things I've just told you, but more than anything, go and do your research, because to me, it explains everything. It tells me that Elon Musk can't be trusted. He's full of shit. It tells me that these countries that apparently all meant to be, fighting against each other, they're full of shit. Why? Because they're all signed on to that treaty that we are not to know what's down there. Right? Anyway, and in closing, I'm going to say this. every single person who's ever said the fact that we don't live on a spinning ball and have been ridiculed and laughed at, whatever else, understand that each and every single one of those people did not come to that conclusion overnight. They would have had weeks, if not months, before they came to the conclusion that, holy shit, we've been lied to. Because when you actually start doing your research to disprove everything I've said, what you find is the opposite happens. It's like, holy shit, like, you can't deny there's something going on here. You can't deny we've been lied to. Even the mathematics of how far away the sun is from the earth, the circumference of the sun, all of it. If you do the calculations and you divide them in a certain way, they all equal 666. I shit you not. But a great place to start, and this basically really explains everything, go and watch a documentary by ODD TV, that's ODD TV, called Planet Flat Earth. Watch it, have an open mind, and I guarantee you, mate, it will open your eyes to the lie that we've been told. That's it. I'm done with this. See you later. And this is how I'm going to finish. Carbon footprint, all bullshit. CO2, all bullshit. The fact that we're trapping our atmosphere, all bullshit. Friggin', what do they call it? We get burnt from the sun in the southern hemisphere because we have a hole in the ozone layer, all bullshit. And when you really realize of the real movement of the sun, you actually understand how the equator works, why in the very northern part of the world they get snow in winter, but in the south, in the southern hemisphere where we are, we don't get friggin' snow in winter. Like Melbourne, Adelaide, Australia in general doesn't get much snow in winter apart from certain parts. And you realize why the equator works. You realize how the moon works. All of it. You'll be absolutely blown away. And do the experiment. Grab a heat temperature gun. Next time the moon's out, find a shadow and find where the moon is shining. Get the heat gun, and I shit you not, it will be cooler in the moonlight than in the shade. Then do the same experiment with a light in your house, where you put a temperature gauge on the shadow of the incandescent light and the shadow and the light of that light, and you'll find that the light inside the house is warm and the shade is cool, but in the moonlight is cooler and the shade is actually warmer. And if you can fucking explain to me all of these things, I'd love to hear it. But we've been lied to, mate. Genesis holds the key to everything. So that's how I'm going to finish this. All this auroral stuff, yes, it's all man-made because there's only 2 places you should see this in the world, right? Geographically speaking. Can you trust people who are exploring space? No, definitely not, because there is nothing else apart from this world, and that's all you need to know. See you later. Share it. And, yeah, do your research, mate. That's all I've got to say.